Hi everyone, welcome to the summer term active school network. If I can just ask if you can put yourselves on mute, it just helps with the quality of the webinar. You are more than welcome to be on camera. It's completely optional if you wish to switch it off. We've got a few people kind of drifting into the waiting room and being let into the call, so I think we are going to carry on. We'll just crack on with the agenda because we've got a fair bit to cover, and I don't want it to kind of overrun. So yes, welcome to the Active Schools Network. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Wendy Newton. I'm Head of Children and Young People at Active Surrey. Just in terms of a bit of housekeeping, if you haven't joined one of these sessions before, we will be sharing the slides and we will be recording the session and we'll share the link with you afterwards. So if you do need to drop out early, if you miss anything, then you will have access to all the material and information afterwards. Please do use the chat feed if you want to ask any questions or network with anybody as we move through the kind of presentations. One of our team will answer questions on the spot if we can, and if not, we'll follow up with you afterwards. So without further ado, I think I'm just going to move straight on and just outline the agenda for today. So there is a slight change and probably need to start with an apology. We were hoping to be joined by Hannah Miller, who is an Ofsted inspector with a specialism in physical education. Unfortunately, she's not able to make the network today, but she will be joining our network in the autumn term. So when we come on to talk about next year's dates and things like that, what should have been delivered today will be delivered in the autumn term. So we've just shifted the content slightly. And what we will be sharing with you a bit later on is we'll be joined by someone from Youth Sport Trust, who's going to cover some material on the school games and competition. So we've just swapped our agendas around slightly just to suit the availability of our guest speakers. Okay, so today's session outcomes, I will go through the usual national bits and pieces and updates and update on PE and Sport premium funding. I also just want to spend a little bit of time talking about our membership offer. I know that a lot of you that are on the call are already member schools, but obviously you'll be aware that you'll be coming up for renewals of your subscription to Active School membership for next year. So I thought it was worth just running through what the membership looks like. We are then going to be doing a Q&A session with one of our schools around PE and school sport and physical activity in terms of its impact on whole school improvement. So that's going to be a Q&A with one of our local schools. We're then going to talk a little bit more detail about the Active Schools offer for next year, which we'll be launching today, basically. And then we're going to have a quick session on a family weight management program, Be Your Best, from one of our other colleagues within the Active Surrey team. And then, like I said, we're going to move on to the competition side of things. So for those of you who are just joining us, please do mute yourselves. Cameras optional. Yes, we'll be sharing slides and recording afterwards. And welcome to the network. So just some up-to-date or as up-to-date as we have statistics from the Active Live survey, just showing some of the latest figures around physical activity, in particular around daily physical activity. Not surprisingly, as I'm sure you guys have been witnessing within schools, there has been a drop in activity levels. And I think this is probably going to continue into the next academic year as well, which probably makes our jobs even more important than ever, just to make sure that we are really, really trying to encourage young people back into PE, sport, physical activity, the whole piece. And support them and provide them with the right opportunities and the right offer in order to get them back involved, which may be different to what we've offered in the past. And hopefully some of the things that we're going to go through today, some of the services that we offer, you'll see that there are some slight changes and some new services and resources that hopefully will be able to support these young people in returning to daily physical activity. Okay, so I said I was going to talk a little bit about PE and Sports premium funding. Obviously, really pleased to be sharing what hopefully most of you already know, that there has been the announcement for another year of PE and Sports premium funding at last. So it's a shame, I guess, for many of you who frantically spent the last few months trying to spend any underspends that you had around this funding, to then be told that actually you can roll it over again and there'll be another cycle of funding. But at the same time, it's really positive news. It's better than it could have been in terms of spend the money by the 31st of July and there will be no more. There is going to be more funding, which is obviously great news. Just worth noting as well, the reporting deadline on this funding still remains the same, which is the 31st of July. And there is a slight tweak to the reporting template. We've shared this template with you many times, but just so you're aware of what it now looks like, it's the one with the blue cover, it's the May version, and the link on this slide will take you directly to a copy of that. So like we always say, if you are using a different template, by all means, that's absolutely fine, as long as it's covering all of the content requested on this national template, because this is what Department for Education will be looking for if they look at the reporting on your website. So the details there, as always, in terms of what you need to share, that hasn't changed, but you do obviously need to highlight where you had underspend from the previous academic year and whether or not that's been spent and how that's been spent. Okay, so I'm going to move on very quickly and talk about membership, because our membership offer, as you well know, as those of you who are already linked into the membership offer, supports all 5 indicators of the PE Sports Premium funding. So those are the indicators, the guidelines that are set out by the Department for Education. They're not set out by us, Active Surrey. They are set out by the government as to what the expectation is around spending that funding and what you should be looking to achieve. And that's reflected in the reporting. So you'll see that when you go through the reporting document. We have various elements to our membership offer, but it is predominantly about supporting you as teachers and about providing you with resources and training to enable you to be the real driving force for PE, school sport and physical activity within your school. So the membership offer for next year looks very similar to this next year. Next academic year looks very similar for this year. We've got the dates there of our active school networks, which we will continue to offer probably in a virtual sense for the moment. We hope to move back to face-to-face events at some point, or certainly at least have maybe one throughout the year where we can get everybody together. We know that networking and being in the same room is something that a lot of people really do miss and value. But then at the same time, the virtual online events have been really beneficial and probably easier for people to attend. So please do, let us know your thoughts on that. We're happy to kind of mix things up. But I think we will be looking to have a face-to-face event if we can. We still provide a session to support new PE leads. So those of you who are new into the PE subject lead role, we will continue to provide that session. And again, that's a virtual one, so it's very easy to access. And we really go into a bit of detail there around the PE Sports Premium funding and what's expected, and in terms of how you spend it and how you report on it. Leaders and teachers training, we still offer a very comprehensive programme. I won't go into details on that because my colleagues are going to touch base on that a little bit later on, but there are discounts associated with those courses if you are a member school. Most of you will have received the new Safe Practice in PE School Sport Physical Activity Guide from AFPI this year as when you signed up for membership. It's not an annual publication, so you won't receive a new copy next year, but you will have access to new online resources that are linked to that guide. And then the final element of the membership, which really makes it more comprehensive than just being an Active Surrey piece, is the membership that it brings you with other organisations. So locally, it connects you with SOLD, who are another hosted organisation hosted by Surrey County Council, and they focus on all of the OAA, so outdoor and adventurous activities. Huge wealth of training, resources and support available through them. Most of you are probably working with them already. In terms of national partner membership, it gives you membership with 2 national associations, so the Association for Physical Education. This slide just shows you, this is just a list, a very short list of many resources and webinars that are accessible to member schools on the AFPI website. And that library of resources is being updated continuously throughout the year. So you get a login and access to that membership area within the APPE website. And there's just an example of some of the things that you can access. And then the second national organisation who we're going to be hearing from later on is Youth Sport Trust. And again, their membership is very focused on teachers training and sharing best practice and bringing teachers together to share their expertise. Again, huge wealth of resources available on their website for member schools. And I guess it's just easy for schools to sign up with Active Surrey, then you automatically get membership with these organisations, and we take care of all the administration of that for you. So if you're not a member school, or if you're umming and ahhing about being a member school for next year, then we would certainly encourage you to do so. The subscription fee hasn't changed, it's still £800 per school. And when we share the information with you after today, you'll be able to sign up for your membership for next year. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next section now and hand over to one of my colleagues. So that was the national updates and the PE Sports Premium piece and the membership stuff. So now we're going to do a quick Q&A session with one of our local schools. So if I'm going to hand over now at this point, I'm going to keep talking to you, but I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who is going to do a Q&A with Kate Barnes from Town Farm Primary School. Town Farm Primary School are based in Spelthorne, 2-form entry from reception to year 6, and they were last inspected in September 2019 and retained a good status with improvements made to the school over the last couple of years. Reflecting this, but physical education is a really important part of their curriculum, and they've been challenging themselves over the past few years to make sure that they're using it to the best advantage in terms of whole school improvement. And Kate is going to do some Q&A with Sarah now, just to talk you through their journey and how they've kind of put PE, school sport and physical activity at the kind of heart of their school. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah now.
Thanks, Wendy. Kate, welcome. I can see we've both been pinned, so everybody can see us. So thank you for taking the time.
No problem.
I guess for the purpose of everybody on the call, it's probably best to just reiterate a few things so people can resonate with people, and your journey can resonate with people. So I think it's important to know that there are 2 PE leads at Town Farm, yourself and Ben. I'm not sure if Ben's on the call today. Both full-time class teachers, but more challenging, both full-time Key Stage 1, so early years and Key Stage 1 teachers. So we already know that there are challenges of trying to influence at Key Stage 2. So two PE leads. You both co-subject leaders for PESSPA, PE School Sport Physical Activity at Town Farm. And I think by your own admission, when we started this conversation or started our connection in September, you're at the beginning of your journey, not your personal journey, but the school's journey, because you obviously came to Town Farm in September. So it really is the kind of the growth that we can see over the last 6 to 8 months around that, but it very much is the beginning of your journey. And if we can just move the first slide on. So before we start with the kind of conversation, Kate, I thought it would be useful to share with everybody the school kind of whole school priorities. And what I really liked about this initially was it clearly had to be changed from the previous year and updated, which is nice to see. But it essentially had to be changed to kind of reflect like the recovery, the COVID recovery. And in terms of kind of those 5 key areas or 5 key priorities, when we sat down initially, what I really liked around it was obviously priority 5 around that kind of mentally healthy school. And what resonates with me there when we started to talk about it is actually the emphasis that SLT are having on PE and school sport and how that can affect and support the whole school in its entirety around being mentally healthy. And I just really like that word around mentally healthy. So I don't know what pre-involvement you'd had with those priorities, because you weren't at the school at them, but I thought that was really nice just to share with everybody as we move forward through these. So we'll crack on. I've got a couple of questions and it's just essentially a conversation. What would be really useful is just to get some sharing of your kind of best practice, what you've been doing. So I guess what would be really useful to know is that taking over as a PE lead in a pandemic was as challenging as being a PE lead not in a pandemic. So trying to retain as much impact as possible when half the pupils were in school and half were outside, you were still teaching electronic, still teaching virtually. Have you managed to make a difference since you came to Town Farm?
Yes, I would say so. When I came to look around the school and when I had my induction, various people said to me, PE is not where we'd like it to be. And, very quickly I was able to sort of have a vision about where I wanted to take the school in terms of PE. So my key priority was obviously to get SLT on board, because there's very little you can do unless you've got the backing, obviously, of your leadership team. So I went in with a very clear plan and telling them where I felt we were as a school and where I'd like to take us, and the head made me very accountable and said, that's fine, you can take us, but you will be accountable for it. So I had everything to prove, but I certainly had their backing as to where I wanted to take it. So getting them on board obviously was the first thing, having a clear vision about what needed improving, what was going well, and that sort of thing. And obviously chatting with you, Sarah, we talked about where, things that were working well, things that we could build on that were already in place that Ben had set up, and things that really needed to be moved very quickly. Another key area for me was working with our PE Link governor and having them on board, because obviously they oversee some of the money and things, so it's useful for them to know where you're going in terms of your priorities, and so that in governing body meetings they can talk about that and sort of fight your corner for you. Again, the action plan was really key in sort of sharing with Ben where I felt we were going to go and make sure as a team we were going in the right direction. So having a very clear action plan, linked in with budget and time and everything else, it was important to have that in place to sort of start our journey in terms of our priorities.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a little look at your action plan, or some of your action plan moving forward. But what I'm really keen to probably pick up on there, and it's probably one of the harder things to try and achieve, is first of all, you were an experienced PE lead from another school, so that obviously absolutely helped, and you could bring some of your experiences from that. But what's really hard and probably quite influential was how you connected with the governor, the PE governor. So every school has a governor that supports PE and supports the effective spend of the funding. And I'm not entirely sure that they are used in the most appropriate way. So what kind of things did you connect with them on, and how do they help you?
So I was very clear in my sort of action plan and sharing that with them, so that I was able to show them what our priorities were, and then just sort of giving them a sort of overview each half term of what I was doing and where we were going, and the reasons for that and the reasons why things were changing. So making sure they were linked in. And I say I was very lucky in my last school to be very supported by our PE governor, and in this school again I've been lucky to have that relationship where they've been very behind me, wanting to know what we're doing and wanting to be involved. And I think that as well as having the SLT on board, having your PE governor on board is a very important thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, isn't it? Is having that kind of top-down approach to support you, because you're at the granular level, you're the one that will make the difference. But actually, to have that kind of connection and that reassurance at the top is really useful. So yeah, thank you for that. So we talk a lot about in kind of education around kind of quick wins and sustainable improvements, and when we sat down back in September, we thought, what are the 3 quick wins that we can try and achieve. So by then we'd obviously had half a lockdown, and some kids were in. So what were the 3 quick wins that you implemented at Town Farm when you came in?
So one of the initiatives that we did was the WOW tracker, which is, an active way to walk to school. So this is something that Ben had been researching and working on. So again, it's placing physical activity as an importance, and the links with home as well, to send out those clear messages that being active is really important to us as a school and for our children. So that was one thing we did. Another thing we did, we had some sports coaches that were coming in, and we weren't, 100% happy with what they were doing. So we looked at finding some better coaches as a stepping stone to actually getting teachers to teach PE themselves, because lots of them hadn't taught PE for years, and so hadn't got the skills, the confidence and so on. So we invested some training for them, so that they're ready, when our sports coaches step down at the end of this term, ready to take over and teach themselves. So that was like a stepping stone, because if we'd just taken them away, I think a lot of staff wouldn't have felt happy about teaching PE, because they hadn't taught it for so long. So that was important. And thirdly was to have a whole school overview in terms of what we wanted to be taught in PE, because I think, like lots of schools experience, coaches coming in, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. No, we should be telling them, we want this, we want that, we want the full range of PE covered, from dance to gymnastics and so on, to outdoor activities and those sorts of things. So we were very proactive in saying, this is what we want our long-term overview to be like. So they were sort of the three main things we implemented back in September.
Yeah, and I think you draw an important point there around and there are still schools, you know, that have kind of coaching to support PE curriculum and such is life, and that's the way it is. But I think if that is the case, and that's the direction of travel that schools have, it's really, you made a really valid point there around, we as a school should be telling them what we need. And in most instances, it's flipped around. It's actually, yep, they'll come in and they'll say we can do X and Y, but doesn't necessarily meet the needs and for all young people. So it was really important that you emphasise that actually we told them what we wanted our school to do, and you know, connects with that kind of wider exit routes of competition and physical activity. So if I could just move the slide on, please, Wendy. So we're going to have a quick glance now at the action plan. So this is top level action plan, and I wanted just to draw on the vision, really. And what's interesting is I've been, probably like you, Kate, been doing this for about 50 years, and I've seen quite a lot of visions in different schools. But over the last 18 months, 2 years, what I've really noticed is the wording within vision statements has moved so far from competition and school sport and just getting more kids in our clubs and connections with exit routes and that type of thing, to more of the kind of holistic whole school vision that you implemented for this academic year. And the words that draw out there around the statement is around the culture. So trying to change the culture of well-being, healthy lifestyle, trying to inspire and engage young people through physical activity. So really nothing there around competition, and the connection there with wider kind of school expectations around raising attainment and using the PESSPA vision to help that. And then obviously further on down, just underneath, you've got kind of the longer term school development plan priorities, which is great. So you can really see how they sit and support and are supported through PESSPA, and then the success criteria on the opposite side there. And then as you've gone down, obviously we haven't put the whole action plan down. You've linked them, you know, connected them with the Ofsted criteria in terms of intent, implement, and impact. So just an idea there. When you showed me this when I first came into a town farm, I thought it was absolutely fabulous. So I know you're happy to share these with other schools. So if you would like copies, anybody on the call, and please pop something in the message and we'll get those to you. So we've spoken about quick wins, and your quick wins are in your action plan. So the next thing really is the longer term sustainable improvements that you would like to see in the next kind of 6 to 12 to 18 months at Town Farm. What are your priorities there, Kate?
Well, just linking back to, you know, our sort of statement that you showed at the beginning is going back to the whole well-being side of it. So I'm working very closely with the PHSE lead and looking at ways that we can, you know, support well-being through physical activity. And for example, next term we're buying into the Wellness Warriors package for our Year 4 children, because we think that will be a very good catalyst to lots of other sort of areas that can be supported through that. So that's going to be a key feature. Just raising that importance of being active and the effect it has on us as adults and children, and getting staff to build in those active breaks, looking at little ways to, you know, make lessons more active, or if they're an inactive lessons, looking at ways to have a break within that session to make everybody feel better, not just the children but the adults as well. And that will always benefit, you know, all our children, and particularly our children with SEN or with OT needs or behaviour needs. Just having that few minutes of being active within a session and raising that sort of message and profile sort of throughout the school from early years all the way up to Year 6. So that's been a key thing. Another sort of big focus for me is about the house system. Now, I'm embarrassed to say, but when I came back to Town Farm, because I taught here many years ago, I met lots of people who were here when I was here the first time around, some who I worked with, some who I taught. But one thing that kept resonating was the house point system. The whole house system isn't what it used to be. It used to be a real driving force. So we've done a big relaunch across the school of the system, new names, new colours, new teams, new profile, because that can be a real incentive for children to behave well in lessons, to have competitions with their PE and so on. And obviously not being able to go outside and compete against other schools, or inter-house competitions become so much more important. So I really felt that was a key priority to sort of raise the profile. So that's something that's been a real focus for this term. And obviously that can be, house points doesn't just affect PE, it goes across the whole of school life. So that's been another real sort of driving force, is the new house point system. And that will be going on. The head has asked me to design a sort of house point collection system, so that's going to be built a bespoke thing, focusing on our compass points, which are going to be our new teams, and the children will be able to drop a bead in the top and it will spiral down a tube, and just making it all really exciting. So yeah, again, that's been another really exciting initiative this term, and going forward from that.
Yeah, I know Ben's been tasked by SLT to find some fangled spirally tube thing. Yeah, good luck with that. But yeah, I mean, and then that's another example of kind of that cross-school support around lessons. So in trying to raise the profile of kind of attainment and behaviour through a house point system. And again, yes, it affects things like profile of being part of an internal team. So yeah, I look forward to hearing about that a little bit more. So just moving on to the final slide then. So Town Farm are one of 130 schools that are pledged or have pledged to be an active school, or part of our active school movement. So thank you for that. And we sat down a couple of months ago to complete the pledge form. And what we worked out, or you predominantly did it, but we worked out kind of a solution. So on the slide now, everybody, you can see the Active Schools Movement pledge from Town Farm, and across the top, Kate's already ticked that kind of current provision in travel and at home was already kind of embedded into the school. So we've spoken about WOW Travel already, and I know lots of schools use the Opal Outdoor Play and Learning, which is kind of a long-term sustainable play activity. So there are things that are already done, but you've pledged to focus on play in class this year and into next year, and which is wonderful. So whether you just want to talk around a few of the solutions that you have had, that you've identified over the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely. And I must just say, having the pledge thing was really useful, because as a lot of you, I'm sure, are, you're full-time, class teachers. And so you're so busy with your own class, sometimes trying to do your curriculum subject, as well, is, feels like the final straw. So having something so simple in terms of structure and quick wins and long-term benefits was really useful for me. And obviously working very closely with Sarah, it helps keep that momentum going with PE while you're trying to still do all your class things as well. Often when we go to training or meeting, you're thinking about all the things that you haven't done, whereas this, first of all, gets you to reflect on things that are already working. And having thought, I've got so much to do, I thought, actually, no, we've got the WOW in place, that's working, so that's a good tick. As you say, the Opal and things and so on. I've worked with Sports Crew before, and it's been absolutely brilliant. They have been really pivotal in lots of different ways throughout the school. And for some children, it is just that carrot to, I hate lessons, I hate working, but sport's my thing, and being part of the sports crew is something that's helping my behaviour and keeping me focused. So that's something I want to implement here, having our sports crew trained and supported with lots of things. Whole school house system we've talked about. Ben has introduced Fitter Futures, just other simple initiatives that we can introduce to support our being active in class. I did the girls football training things, working in partnership with Shooting Stars, which we're going to be rolling out from September. And so on. We've just had the Fizzy Fun bags delivered to school, and we're targeting families that we're going to use for that, and creating sort of hype within the newsletters, and class teachers have got slides to show their children how they can do this, and then making other children, I want to take part in that, that sounds great, I want to wear the little tracker watch and see how many steps I do. So it's those sorts of things that we've got, which are sort of quick and easy to implement, and obviously Active Surrey are there to help us with all that, which makes it so much easier. So lots of things already in place. face, and certainly working with Create and having our real PE training has sort of inspired teachers and given them confidence, because obviously that's going to be our key thing from September, is teachers teaching their own PE and using that real PE as their driving force sort of through their PE sessions. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
Yeah, like you said, it just allows you to have one piece of paper, looks at what you're already doing, things that you need to improve on. And I guess that moves on to the next question around kind of measuring that success, because that's really always the hardest piece to do, is how do we know this is having effect? How do we know all these little interventions is making Johnny come to school on time? Those types of things. So that little bit underneath where it says impact, you know, when we sit down and reflect in 12 months, Kate, around what's happened, we will be able to kind of tick and identify in some of those boxes. So how we, aside from the pledge and using this to kind of measure the success, what signs of improvement, have you noticed any signs of improvement over the last 6 to 8 months?
Oh, absolutely, already. So it's the informal signs, like parents saying, oh, I love this, or my child's doing this or wants to do that. It's, you know, staff, colleagues and children coming and telling me things about things that are working well, things they're taking part in, feedback from SLT, feedback from governors and so on, as well as more formal ways to sort of evaluate that. For example, I did a survey with staff at the beginning of the year about how well they felt certain activities were going across the school, and collated that data so that I can look, you know, this autumn term and look at the impact that's had, and, you know, which areas are working well and which still need a bit more support. So sort of formally and informally ways to sort of reflect on that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's always the challenge to know, you know, how we almost measure the success by numbers of children coming back to clubs or that type of thing, but this is way harder because we're trying to challenge them on skills and qualities and other kind of life skills. So yeah, that's useful to hear that. So I guess a final question from us then is around kind of the whole ethos of an active school and how you're trying to change the culture of a school. So like you mentioned, you've got teachers there that have been there probably a heck of a long time, and it's always really hard to trying to nudge people to change the way that they work and think. So in becoming an active, why do you think becoming an active school is so important for Town Farm?
I think, you know, same reason as many schools, you know, the well-being we know is key, and we know what it's like if we just go outside and have a bit of fresh air or do something active, and just showing staff that it's not about sport, it's about being active. There are people say, oh, you know, I don't like any of that, and say, but I do love going for a walk in a park, or I do like gardening, or I do like my yoga. Well, you know, being active doesn't have to be, you know, running a marathon or swimming across the channel. Being active means just being active, and it can be in a variety of different ways. And, you know, we know that feeling, whether it's you having a dance at a wedding or, you know, walking through the hills, that, you know, the well-being effect that we have. And obviously through lockdown, that's become even more crucial. So again, coming back to well-being being a really important matter, and just changing habits. And we don't want you know, children just to go, oh, I love PE when I was at primary school, and that's it. We want them to develop a lifelong love of being active, and appreciate that, you know, by being active I felt this way and I want to feel that again. We want them to continue to participate in physical activity, in sport, in all those sorts of things, not just through primary or secondary, but for it to become a lifelong habit. And finally, I would say, you know, with a lot of our children, they live in very small homes. Lots of our children are in flats. Many children don't have access to a garden. Many parents don't play sport themselves, don't necessarily, you know, value being active. So it's really important that we send that message to children and to parents at home that, you know, get out there, go to the park, you know, do these things, take your fizzy fun bag, and enjoy those physical activities, because it doesn't just benefit the children, it benefits the whole family as well.
Yeah, well said, definitely. You know, and I knew there was a reason why I wanted to connect and get you to share your stories. So yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I know that we've also spoken about you know, having a kind of launch day in September where we have like a Town Farm active day, and we kind of try and launch that whole school approach to being physically active. But yeah, but it's been lovely. And I know that Alana was looking after the chat. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, Alana, or if anybody has any questions they want to be brave enough to ask Kate, but certainly I know that we can send the action plan on, and I can see that, but appreciate time. Alana, I don't know if is there any questions on the chat?
But I have taken a note of all the schools that want the plan, and I'll send that over to you.
Kate, thank you so much for your time.
Guys, if you haven't got your school next to your name, can you please either check your messages, because you're getting messages from me to see who you are, or actually put it in the name because we're having a bit of an issue with a couple of you. Can just make sure that that's done, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, stretch, have a cup of tea, maybe a fruitcake, chocolate, something like that. So we're going to reconvene. It's 22, so 5 minutes if we can come back.
I don't know whether Charlie's just put Sarah on mute because she just skipped ahead slightly on the agenda. We're not taking a break just yet, people. We're taking a break later on. That's what Sarah's going to intro on the next set of slides. Few more bits to go through first, but can I just say a massive thank you to Kate and to Sarah for that session. I think it was really, really useful. I mean, I was sat listening to some of the things that Kate was saying and thinking it sounds like we teed her up to literally plug our services, which we did not. But I think Sarah brought Town Farm to my attention last term, just in terms of a really good example of putting PE, school sport, physical activity at the heart of a school. And embedding it with your senior leadership team, with your governors, etc., and making it a kind of whole school approach and behavioural change. So it's really, really great to hear all of those messages and the kind of success that you're now starting to see. And it's not, you know, there are quick wins that any school can put into place. But obviously, Kate's kind of talked through some of the examples of things that have taken a little bit longer to embed. And it will take some time, it will take more time in certain schools because of the nature of the young people that you are educating. But thank you very much, Kate. That was great. So what I'm just going to cover quickly before we do go into a break is some of the services that obviously Active Surrey will continue to offer next year. We are on the verge of launching our kind of brochure for next academic year, which will be coming out to you this week. And all the courses, a lot of which Kate mentioned just now, are bookable after today. So most of you will now be quite familiar with our Active Schools wheel, or wedge as we call it, and all the different services that we offer. We're not going to go through absolutely every single element of that because we've touched on some of it already, and some of it you will already be very, very familiar with. But we do just want to talk about some of the stuff that is now bookable for next year. And we would really actively like to encourage you to sign up to services this term for next academic year. It makes our life so much easier in terms of planning. There have been a few staffing changes within the team recently, so we are looking to recruit over the summer in preparation for the autumn term. And it is just really, really important that we understand and know what schools want in September. So I am not going to bore you with this information. I am going to turn to my very capable team to just take you through just a couple of elements. So we're gonna look at the leaders training, the teachers training, and then very quickly on child wellbeing. So I'm going to hand over to Lee now.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lee, one of the Active Schools officers. I'm sure I've met many of you before. So I'll be providing a brief overview of our leadership solutions for next year. We're really happy that we can actually finally return to face-to-face delivery, get to see yourselves and your pupils once again at the training. All of the leadership training solutions, as Wendy just said, they're covered in the brochure in much more detail, along with the booking links. But I'll go through kind of each solution quickly, just to give you a brief overview. So if we could just skip to the next slide, if that's okay, please, Wendy. Thank you very much. So yeah, starting with first steps to leadership. So this is training for year 2 pupils in infant schools only. It's delivered in your school, focuses on exploring the skills and qualities of a good leader, the importance of warming up the body and mindful physical activity, why teamwork is important, and then designing games and activity for use in your schools in Key Stage 1. This is not new for this year. We have run a few sessions in the past, which some of you may have attended. But as I said, it is for infant schools only. It's our first steps, to get onto that leadership ladder. Then secondly, we have PhysiFund champions. Hopefully, most of you are familiar with the PhysiFund cards, which we use across a number of our solutions. This training uses the cards to focus on providing an easy way to target inactive or disengaged pupils and help motivate them to become more physically active using simple structured activities. As part of the training, schools do receive a PhysiFund card pack so that you can set up your own break, lunch, or after school club. And it also provides a fantastic opportunity for your leaders to deliver activity on a regular basis. Their roles can include delivering the activity, taking registers, advertising the club within school assemblies. So it really provides that variety of skills to develop for your pupils. That's aimed at year 4 and year 5 pupils, and they are predominantly run in central venues, but we have got some scope for coming into your school and running sessions. If I could have the next slide, please. Sorry, back one. I'll skip ahead. Sorry, Wendy. So next we have sports crew, which many of you may have attended with your schools previously, and it's for year 5 or 6 pupils. 3-hour session, run at central venues, and the main outcomes from this training are to develop leadership, resilience, and confidence. Not only can this training really help develop your pupils, but it's also an opportunity to deploy them to support you as PE leads. They could form your sports councils, they could be the pupil voice for sport and physical activity in school, help support your events, such as sports days, house competitions, values festivals, maintain and update your school sport notice board. So that's really a bit of training that helps you as a PE lead, but also actually, develops your year 5 or 6 leaders for whatever you may want to deploy them in the school, as well as possible volunteering opportunities with our events that we run also. Next slide, please. Then we move on to Gifted and Talented Academy, which is returning for this year. This is for year 6 pupils only, and they are nominated by PE leads to attend 2 separate half days of training. We'll have 2 locations running this year, one in the east of the county and one in the west, because we wanted to ensure that if you wanted to send pupils to the training, that you weren't limited by location and geography. The first session is delivered by Create Development and showcases the real leaders approach, and the second looks at championing PE and school sport as a leader. So this is really for your confident, competent leaders that possibly have come to sports crew in the past, are going to sports crew this year, but you do have to nominate that. At the moment, that's an inquiry form that just comes to myself, but the application process will be released shortly for that. And then finally, we're still offering our virtual leadership offer, which we released this past year during lockdowns, which is Sports Organiser Squad. The 3-hour training session is for leaders in years 5 and 6 again, helps upskill yourselves and pupils in how to plan, organise and deliver intra-school competitions for their peers. Schools receive a squadron leaders teacher pack with 4 training modules, as well as resources such as bibs and booklets. And the beauty of this is that it can be delivered at a time that works best for you. So we were really keen to make sure that we had a virtual offer, as we know that not all schools can always make the training that we have available. So that was pretty much a fly-in visit to our solutions that we have this year. They are all bookable, so please make sure you confirm your places as soon as possible. They can be found on the brochure as well in a bit more detail, as well as on the website. So thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you all at this training later on this year. But now I'm going to hand over to Laura, who is our Workforce CPD officer, to give an overview of the teacher training programme.
Lovely, thanks Lee. Hi everyone, I'm Laura White. I lead on our teacher training programme alongside Charlie Winter. And so staff confidence and competence in delivering PESSPA is one of the 5 key indicators of your sports premium funding. So hopefully all of you have ring-fenced some funding for staff training to ensure sustainable high quality PESSPA delivery in your schools. I'm just going to talk you through our offer for next year. Firstly, our PE and school sport consultancy. We're once again really pleased to be working with St Mary's and Kingston universities to offer a fantastic bespoke consultancy service to Surrey schools. Due to the pandemic, we did kind of delay the rollout of this opportunity, but we're really excited about the opportunities it will bring to schools in terms of expertise and new opportunities. So our consultancy is available in a range of offers from 2 hours to half day to full day, and can cover a whole range of themes from full day insets on dance, gym, games, athletics, to improving staff confidence through team teaching, or focus support around areas such as inclusion, to bespoke one-to-one support on planning or assessment. So a real varied offer which can be bespoke to your schools. So please do get in touch with us if that's of interest, and we can work with you to make sure that we tailor it to whatever suits your needs. Next slide, please, Wendy. So on to courses and training. We've used your insight and feedback to create another comprehensive year-round programme of CPD opportunities from a host of trusted delivery partners. All opportunities are listed on the Active Surrey website, and they will be updated regularly as we add new courses. So please do continue to visit our website and see what's there and make the most of those. They all can be booked directly via the website. We're pleased to continue our partnership with Create Development again this year to support you to deliver an outstanding PE curriculum which meets the need of every child and one that every teacher is confident to deliver. Create are now able to offer a blended training package for real PE and their other solutions. So again, visit our website to find out a little bit more, including access to an introductory webinar if you want to know a little bit more about what Create Development is. Alongside that, if you just pop onto the next slide, Wendy, we've got some new courses this year which are specifically designed to support PE leads. These will be delivered by our education consultants and cover a number of key themes that will hopefully help you flourish in your roles and give you that support, similar to what kind of Kate mentioned in the chat earlier. If you need a little bit of direction as to where you want to go with your PE delivery and your PESSPA planning, then these courses hopefully will be ideal for you. You can attend one, you can attend all of them. We're hoping they'll all be face-to-face, but it all depends on delivery at that time. But again, it will also give you the opportunity as PE leads to come together and meet other PE leads and discuss what provision is like in other schools as well. So have a look on our website, you can book on those now, and as I say, they'll be delivered by education consultants who you'll be able to talk throughout the training as well. On to the next one, which is another new opportunity for next academic year, the Early Careers Framework. We've got a number of modules available as part of this framework because we're aware that every primary school teacher receives very little PE specific training as part of their qualification. So enable to support them on their journey into being a class teacher, we want to give them some additional support with PE delivery. So these modules are again delivered by our education consultants just to give them that kind of helping hand into delivering PE and boost their confidence. So please visit our website, have a look, show them to your newly qualified staff and get booking on if you think they would be of interest. We're happy to discuss the content a little bit more if you'd like more details. And then finally, if you can go to the next one, Wendy, thank you. I thought I'd just highlight a few of the courses coming up next year, especially those that are new to us. So this one is the AFP Level 4 in supporting pupils' wellbeing through physical education. We all know that pupil wellbeing is of paramount importance at the moment. So this qualifications helps to highlight the link between physical activity and social and emotional well-being, so helping pupils take care of themselves and their own well-being. That one's being run as a virtual course over 4 different sessions. The next one is the Active Play Through PhysiFun, which is directed at playground staff. So how to create positive playground environments for young people to ensure all young people are included and active, even those that are usually least engaged. So that course is available on request or as a half-day inset. So again, get in touch with us if you'd like to be involved in that one. Our next one is the Create Development PE Sport Premium and Health Wheel. This provides a way to assess your current PESSPA offer and then identifies ways where you can improve your delivery and helps you kind of create a development plan and show impact. It's already been used successfully in a number of Surrey schools, so we can link you up with other schools who are using it to get some feedback, but we've got a induction into that one in November, already up and running on the website to book. And then the final one is just to highlight that there are courses as well for our member schools. So this one is free to all member schools, parental engagement beyond the school gate. And it gives you top tips to engage with parents and influence healthy, active lifestyles outside of school. So a real mixed bag of opportunities as part of the training programme. If the training you're looking for or the course you want isn't part of the programme at the moment and it's not listed, please do get in touch with us and let us know, because we're happy to run things on demand. And we're also happy to kind of help tailor bespoke offers for schools if it's something that you need. So don't be scared to get in touch with us. We're really excited about all the different opportunities that we're providing this year, including our new courses. So yeah, please get booking. And now I'm going to hand over to Sarah Williams, who's going to talk you through our new wellbeing offer.
Thank you, Laura. Yep, just a quick update. We did run this as a breakout session in the Spring Network, so some of you might have heard this before. Equally, some of you might have already had the training and are fully aware of it, but we launched the Child Wellbeing Offer in September last year. It's a three-pronged approach to support schools, families and pupils. And around the offer is mainly around the training. So just to move the slides on then, Wendy. So there are three options, there are three opportunities. So the staff training is delivered virtually and is designed for kind of internal staff around homeschool link workers, ELSAs, and it's delivered by the nurses and within the schools to be able to support one-to-one children. It provides them with the knowledge and confidence around introducing physical activity and daily movement to help support the mental health. It also then helps identify ways to involve movement in their work with young people. So it really is around providing training for those teachers to be able to approach and support young people within their schools about being more physically active. And it concentrates a lot around kind of the wider wellbeing around nutrition, sleep and hydration. So it's a virtual session and it's a centralised session, and dates, I believe Laura will be, I think there's a date already on the website to book on for next year. So that is for your kind of internal staff. And then the follow-on from that then is to engage with the parents around the benefits of kind of well-being and introducing kind of ways of like a healthy plate, to understand about moving more and the connections and how they're linked with mental health and improving mental health. So it talks again about physical activity, it talks about sleep and nutrition. And the theme of our tree of well-being goes throughout the staff training, the parent workshop, and the young people's training. So on the next slide then is the child wellbeing offer for wellbeing warriors. So this is the pupil training, and this has been really popular over the last 6 to 8 months within schools. So it is designed for Year 4 pupils to introduce them to understanding kind of emotions and feelings and connecting kind of their understanding of physical activity and improving their mental health. And again, we talk about sleep and the kind of essential roots of the tree of well-being. So the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, you can see the tree of well-being, and that is essentially essential through all aspects of the training. And you can see at the bottom then we use movement, sleep, nutrition and hydration as the kind of roots of well-being. And we talk about how we want to look at behaviour change and making pledges to change 1 or 2 of those areas to improve their mental well-being. So it's proved really, really popular, and the feedback for that has been great. So there's a little quote there from one of our schools to say, I thought the picture of the brain scan was good. It got me thinking a bit more about being active and how it can boost my system. So we try to connect how moving more can really help with kind of thinking and have those kind of positive effects. So all of those sessions you can see at the bottom there are on our website to be booked. They can be booked between now, for Wellbeing Warriors between now and the end of the academic year, and all 3 then can be booked for next academic year if you want to be able to plan and prepare those into your timetables. So now we're going to have a little 5-minute break. Apologies, I did that a little bit prematurely beforehand. So it's 5 to 5. So if we can stretch our legs, have a cup of tea and come back onto the screens just after 5 o'clock. Let's go 3 minutes past 5. That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Everybody, so I'm assuming everyone's back from the break, but I think we'll crack on because I'm sure people want to get away on time if we can. So I'm just going to we've added a kind of extra slot into the agenda, and I'm just going to introduce, so we're going to do a quick 10 minutes now on our family weight management program, Be Your Best. Hopefully it's of interest to most of you. I think when you hear from my colleague, you'll understand kind of why it's accessible to everybody and the reasons behind it. Most of you will know the person I'm about to introduce. She used to be a member of the Active Schools team. She took a sideways step into the health team within Active Surrey. So I'm just going to introduce Abigail Price, who's going to talk you through the Be Your Best programme.
Thanks for the intros, Wendy. So yeah, in terms of the Be Your Best programme, if you could just flip to the next slide, please, Wendy, that's great, thank you. So like Wendy said, I'm Abigail and I'm a health lead at Active Surrey. Can you just go back to the images, is that okay?
Sorry.
That's okay. So a bit of background, we are funded by Surrey Public Health for 2 years. So the programme started in February 2020. And like I said, it's due to run for 2 years, potentially slightly extended due to the pandemic. So I thought I'd start off by sharing these images because they make us all smile here at the Be Your Best team. So a series of pictures with some of the young boys that have been involved in the programme. So all of these young boys have completed 12 engagements with us. You'll see Sean on the left-hand side with his healthy strawberries and bananas. We also work in partnership with Family Learning to run online live cooking workshops as well. So that's those healthy blueberry muffins in the middle. And also we give the families a wealth of incentives to encourage attendance. So you'll see some trackers and water bottles and kit bags that Paul's got at the top. Thanks, Wendy. So in terms of Be Your Best and what it is, some of you may know what Be Your Best is because we have received referrals from a number of schools, and that's increasing, which is really positive. So essentially, we are a healthy weight management programme who supports families with children 0 to 12 years who are above a healthy weight range. So essentially who have excess weight. The programme very much focuses on behaviour change. So it's a lot more than just moving more and eating a bit better. We focus on a number of different concepts and ideas, which I'll go into in a minute. And the idea is to work with those families and educate those families to ensure that behaviour change is sustained into their teenage years and to adulthood. So we work in partnership with a number of organisations. So many of you, obviously being based in schools, will work with Children and Family Health Surrey. So we work with essentially 3 nurses. So we have a full-time lead specialist clinical nurse, which is superb. And then we have another 2 health visitors working with us on the programme. We also work with the University of Surrey and their students to provide some of our online content too. Thanks, Wendy. So in terms of who we can support, so the good news is our criteria is not as strict as it used to be. So we can support the majority of families now. So the focus still is on those families who's fit into that criteria on the screen, as you can see. So just going through that. So essentially, we're looking at supporting those families whereby their income is £20,000 or less, or in receipt of benefits such as universal credit. Those families from the ethnically diverse community, otherwise also known as the BAME community. Those children who have a special educational need or disability. However, I must reiterate that we can only support those children who have mild, moderate learning difficulties. If they have severe physical disabilities or learning disabilities, then we tend to refer on to a dietitian within a hospital. And also those families within a selected area of Surrey. So essentially what we mean by that is the top 30% most deprived boroughs or wards. But like I said, only 60% of our referrals have to be targeted now. So essentially the other 40% can be universal. So if you are listening to me now and thinking of children that could potentially benefit, and children and families who could potentially benefit from this programme and do not come into any of those bullet points, please do send the referral in. I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a moment. Next slide, please, Wendy. Thank you. So in terms of how it works, so we would receive referrals from a number of different sectors. So essentially we receive referrals from the health sector. So that could be school nurses, it could be health visitors, it could be GPs, dietitians. We also receive a lot of referrals, high percentage actually, from homeschool link workers, which is really positive. And also we've seen an increase of self-referrals too from those families, especially as we're coming out of lockdown. You would send in the referral form, or this would be via a link, I should say, which I will post, which is in this presentation. and someone would be in contact with that family directly. So if they were eligible for the programme after we'd had that conversation, this is what they would receive. So essentially it would be 6 one-to-one nurse sessions, which would happen in the family home. So that's where the tailored support and the one-to-one support is. And then in addition to that, 6 online group sessions. So that would happen on a Tuesday or a Thursday, either or, not both, from 4 till 5:30. So from 4 till 5, it's parent only, and then from 5 till 5:30, the child would be invited onto the call. In addition to that, like I said, we work in partnership with Family Learning, and we also run online activity sessions every Saturday from 10 a.m. till 10:40. We must really stress that it has to be the right time for the family to come onto the programme. We've nearly got a waiting list. We're kind of hitting that threshold. We're getting referrals in at the moment every 48 hours, sometimes every day, that we're having to process. So if we do, what we ask from families is they commit to 12 sessions. If that's not right for them at this moment in time, which a lot of the time it isn't, then we ask them to come back at a later date. Thanks, Wendy. Next slide. Okay, so as I said, this is a public health funded programme. So with that comes KPIs. So I thought it'd be quite interesting for you to see what we're trying to achieve. So either reduced or maintained BMI at 6 to 12 months, increased level of physical activity after those 12 engagements, which I spoke about earlier, increased fruit and veg consumption, basically more time moving and less time sitting down, so less time on the screens, improved self-esteem and self-confidence after 12 engagements, and also increased knowledge of healthy eating and physical activity. So it's worth noting that this majority of these are for the child and for the responsible adult as well. So it's very much a family programme rather than just supporting the child or the parent alone. Thanks, Wendy. Next slide. So just before I finish and go into how you can make a referral, so this is a real life success story. So this young boy is called Carlo. Who knows, he might even be at your school. So Carlo joined with us. He's engaged with us over 12 engagements, which is amazing. So before Carlo joined the programme, his sedentary time totaled 28 hours a week, which is quite staggering. I'm sure you'll agree. And he achieved just 30 minutes of activity a day. And as you all know, it's Chief Medical Officer's guidelines is 60. So by the end of the 12 engagements, he reduced his sedentary time by nearly 50%, which is great. And he increased his activity time daily to 90 minutes. So he is one of the only children that has attended every single Saturday without fail on the online group session, on the online family fit sessions. And you'll see him there. So they haven't actually got a working computer or laptop. So he does it using the parent's iPhone, which I just think is great. He's recently joined a local tennis club in the community, so outside of school. And he also plays football during school lunchtimes as well. Just as important, his knowledge of healthy, active lifestyles has increased. His fitness levels have increased. And also it's given him the opportunity to meet new friends, boosting his self-confidence and self-esteem. What we're finding within the programme, the results are coming through that we're really seeing that as a noticeable change in terms of self-esteem and self-confidence, which is absolutely fantastic for the young people involved. Thanks, Wendy. Next slide. So this is the last slide. So in terms of next steps or how you can help, or if you want to make a referral, so we've got a website there. I'm assuming this will be sent out after the session, so you'll be able to access all this. You can refer using that link. So if you want to refer as a professional, or if you want a family to refer, then the link's essentially the same. It takes around 10 minutes to complete. If you don't know the child's height and weight, you can leave that blank and we can have that conversation going forward as well. Social media channels, so Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And like I said, families can self-refer, and we're seeing an increased volume of self-referrals, which is quite positive. And we're also happy to send flyers and posters if that's something you feel would be helpful to hand out, or hand out to specific families, of course, because it is targeted, or to leave it, just in reception. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll stay on for another 10 minutes or so. I'll also pop my email in there. If you want to have further conversations about a specific family, if you're not sure whether they'll be eligible, just email me anyway, and we can have those discussions and take it from there. Thanks, Wendy.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Abs. I will remove your spotlight. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction to the development manager at Youth Sports Trust, who has kindly joined us, and that is Ashley, and she's going to be talking to us about using competition to achieve wider outcomes. Welcome, Ashley, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's really nice to be here and share some content with you. Wendy did a great introduction at the beginning about the membership offer, but it was just to sort of reinforce all about Youth Sport Trust membership at the beginning today, just to say that we are here to partner with you as schools, and it's all about helping to support you, ensure that every young person has the opportunity to belong and achieve going next academic year. We as an organisation also pledge to lobby on behalf of PE and sport practitioners, using our seat around the table, sitting with government, influencing policy to really champion our profession locally, regionally and nationally. And some of that support that you'll be able to access through your membership offer is through our new practitioner development programme, where you'll have access to 4 virtual sessions, and it's going to be sharing sort of cutting edge expertise from PE practitioners like yourself, working alongside YST's expert team, just sharing innovation, practical advice to really support you in your day-to-day role in school, as well as providing that strategic and innovative thinking. There's also opportunity for you to access 2 virtual communities of practice, which will be meeting with like-minded colleagues in a virtual capacity and really sharing that best practice, examples of support and implementing solutions that you can use back in your own setting. And you'll also receive that national updates and information from Youth Sport Trust straight into your inbox. So lots on an offer to support you. And as I say, we're always here as an organisation. If you need further support or you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat function as I go into today's session. Next slide, please. So the Youth Sport Trust, for those of you that have worked with us previously or know quite a lot about the work that we do, you probably have noticed that we've done a bit of a brand refresh. So there's lots of new colours and logos and things on our website and on a lot of our content that we'll be sharing with you over the next coming months and academic year. And it's really just to introduce who we are as an organisation for those of you that aren't familiar. But we are the UK's leading charity for improving the education and development of every child through play and sport. And it's really about working together to really help and empower young people to achieve their own personal best, but also help and equip educators like yourselves to change lives, but also be change makers in your own school setting and your own county area, locality, and borough, and whatever role that might be. Next slide, please. And today we're going to be talking about and sharing with you content around designing and delivering competitive school sport with the intention of achieving wider educational outcomes. So as an organisation, we've been speaking to lots of different schools, practitioners, school games organisers across the country. It has been a very challenging year for everyone. But Active Study thought this would be perfect timing to really think about those wider educational outcomes that can come from a really strong and varied enrichment offer that schools can provide. And I'm sure this fits in really nicely with the work that's happening across Active Study and across nationally with the new direction of the school games, where we're moving to and how that's going to be changing and shaping into next academic year. If you do have any questions today, albeit we're doing this virtually, please do pop it in the chat function and I'll get to them at the end. And I'm going to be doing lots of sort of reflective questions as we go through today's session. So please do share any thoughts, any ideas, any answers as we go through, because it'd be great to hear from you and what you're doing in your school. These slides will be shared with you at the end through Wendy and the team, and also there'll be a few resources that I'll mention within the slides today. I'll share those links in this, the chat function, and we'll also share that with you via email afterwards when the slides have been shared. Next slide, please. So today's session, we're going to look at 3 outcomes that we want to achieve, and please do take away. I hope you can get at least 1 or 2 things that you can take back to your setting tomorrow and hopefully implement. Perhaps trial something new at the end of this term, or it might help you shape some of your planning for next academic year. So we're just going to establish and look at the understanding of our enrichment provision, the purpose of it, and the role that sport plays within that. We're also going to talk about the existing role of competition. We're also then going to explore what opportunities do we have as practitioners to influence school sport provision in our school, and then how do we take that forward and what's that going to look like. Next slide, please. So first of all, I'm just going to share with you a statement or a definition of enrichment. So as you can see on the screen there, we can see that it's activities or interventions that happen during and outside of curriculum time that seek to pursue academic or those wider health and wellbeing goals through non-traditional means. They tend to be for those young people that have a choice in accessing it, or you may be using this as a targeted approach or intervention for some other young people. Now, I just want you to share in the chat function and reflect on your current enrichment offer. I want you to think about the amount of staff time and resource that you put towards your enrichment offer, how much of that is allocated to enrichment, and do you feel that your enrichment offer is meaningful and accessible to all? So how is it designed? How are you delivering it? And are you monitoring your impact? Please do use the chat function, pop any thoughts, any feelings you have towards it, and we can take that through onto the next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to think about how PE or sport can contribute towards enrichment. So I've got some definitions on the screen, and these are really to help you identify the purpose of different enrichment opportunities that sport might offer. And these might be different on the reason that you are applying them. It could be you use different reasons for a different target audience, a different activity that you're offering, or perhaps the skills and behaviours that you want to achieve from that outcome of that enrichment club or activity. So as you can see there, we've got enabling, enhancing, and enriching. And you might find that a lot of the language that we speak about, where PE and school sport are contributing towards enrichment, is quite reflective of the language that's used within the Ofsted inspection framework, particularly when we talk about personal development. So this enrichment can be a fantastic way to really showcase how we are contributing towards personal development, and it might be through enabling, enhancing, and enriching. So enabling can be where young people are given the opportunity to participate in those extracurricular opportunities, and that's where they develop those skills which they might not have developed through the curriculum, so within their physical education. It might give them that added extra time to really work on those wider life skills. It might give them the opportunity to really develop them, practice them, and also see where they can transfer those skills outside of the classroom, outside of school, the school day, in a sense, and give them somewhere else to shine. Enhancing can be where young people are given that opportunity to access a deeper or more enhanced practice or experience, and then also that enrichment, where young people are given the opportunity to develop and engage in activities or sports that they might not have otherwise have had access to within curriculum time or outside of school. And that enrichment piece is really all about Perhaps that could be linked into that building culture capital in children and young people, where through that enrichment club, you're providing the opportunity perhaps to visit a venue, an event, another school, or an experience that they would never have experienced perhaps inside of school or outside of school. I just want you to think about, do you use these words in your current setting? Do you talk about your enrichment offer in this way? And do you really capitalise on how sport plays a massive contribution towards personal development? So this might be something that you go back to your setting, reassess, reevaluate, and think about, what does this look for us as a school? And can our staff, SLT, governors, and even perhaps parents, could they articulate the reasons behind why there is an enrichment opportunity and why young people can access it? Next slide, please. So I just want to show you this visual that we've got on the screen. So the one on the right-hand side, which says why school sport. So this is a fantastic visual that you might want to take from the slides once they've been shared, and you might want to kind of use this as a template and populate with your own why, your own how, and your own what. But it's basically designed to encourage you to really reflect on your why and understand what is the intention of sport's role in your wider enrichment offer. This is really here to challenge you to be more purposeful in your design and your delivery of your enrichment offer. So if we think about our why in the middle there, you can see that we're thinking about how are we providing enriching, engaging, and an extension opportunities for all. So thinking about all of those wider life skills that we want to focus on, but also how does that link into perhaps your own skills values or school games values? What is your why in your setting? And again, to reflect back, this will definitely touch upon that personal development of young people, of where you can really support the focus on personal development, link it back into Ofsted. Not that that should be a driver for this, but it's certainly somewhere that's a massive contributor to, and somewhere where you can showcase and share examples and evidence of supporting young people's personal development. So if we think about the reflection questions, so who currently in your setting is accessing your sport enrichment opportunities? Who comes along to your clubs, who accesses everything, signs up? Is it those that are just interested in sport and physical activity? Is it your traditional sporty kids? Those that are already active? Is it those who have been identified as talented in a particular activity or sport? Who is accessing your current enrichment offer? And then thinking about what needs to happen to ensure the uptake is as inclusive as it's intended to be. So is it promoted clearly? Is it accessible to all? Are young people consulting around what activities they think are appropriate, are fun, that they would like to do, and what delivery style is being used? And do you need to recognise and celebrate individuals for engaging in this enrichment opportunity and not just for winning? And then finally, how does competition currently contribute here? So is everybody accessing competition in some format throughout the school day? Or do you think there's only a small number, maybe perhaps your year 5, your year 6 predominantly, engaging in competition as opposed to the wider rest of the school? So some questions to think about, but it's really to get you to start to assess what is the why of your enrichment offer and why is sport playing a really massive contribution here and who's accessing it in your setting. So you might want to go back and find some data to give you that information. You might want to think about the percentage of pupils accessing each year group, across each year group that are accessing regularly your sport enrichment offer. Or perhaps you might want to consider the weighting of time that's been allocated to those that are already active and engaged in sport outside of school. So if they're already engaged and active, should perhaps your enrichment offer be reflective of those young people that are inactive and perhaps don't have that confidence to engage in physical activity or sport? So lots of food for thought here, but it's questions that are extremely important and relevant, particularly now when we're thinking ahead to next academic year, and also after the effects of COVID. Our enrichment offer has probably massively changed over the past year, but there might have been a lot of change needed in your enrichment offer, and this has provided a window of opportunity for you to try new things that might stick, some might not, but this could be an opportunity to really understand what an enrichment offer is and how competition plays a part in this, and how we can really support young people's wider educational needs and outcomes from a really strong and positive enrichment programme. Next slide, please. Now, you may have seen this slide before, so it's come from School Games Data and Insight, and it's all sort of supporting the Reframe competition, I'd say, campaign that came out a couple of years ago. And this work was primarily driven by insight that was gathered from a review of global and domestic practice in relation to the delivery of competitive school sport. So it's basically given us some data and insight to really increase the engagement of a wider range of young people that are accessing school games and perhaps accessing enrichment and competition programmes within school settings. And you can see here that from the diagram, it shows you the number of events covering a particular year group a few years ago, and this was a national picture. And you can see that sort of primary school age young people are very exposed to sport and competition, and then you can see that drop off at that transition phase between year 6 and year 7. So this is just to show you that there is that gap there around how we can engage young people, but how can we use enrichment to really support and introduce competition in a fun, safe, positive way to set them up to be to want to engage at another setting, or when they're moving on and transitioning into secondary school. This might not be the case for this academic year and last academic year due to COVID and the interruptions that we've had on competition in that traditional face-to-face inter-school leagues, fixtures, festivals that we've had. But perhaps from the use of virtual and using bubble and house competitions inside of school, perhaps this is going to show a similar picture due to the lack of transition that's been in place over the last few academic years. But I just wanted to share that with you, that it's definitely something that does trend and could be something that we're thinking about moving forward. Next slide, please. So now we're just going to touch on why do we do school sport competition? Thinking about enrichment, thinking about those wider educational outcomes, but where is our why and why do we do this? Next slide, please. So if we look at this diagram here, and as you can see, I just want to start off by saying that at no point are we saying that we want to remove winning and losing. Competition is not competition without this, but we want to focus on the wider outcomes. So if we think about our why school sport competition, let's think of it as our intent. And again, we're referring it back to that Ofsted inspection framework language. Again, this isn't a driver for this agenda, but it's really to show you that there is that correlation there. So if we emphasise on school sport, this is taking place in education establishments and settings. So therefore, there has to be learning central to why we do it. And what are the wider outcomes that we're trying to achieve here? So we can see that we want those opportunities to learn. And we also want young people to see the benefit and the real value of school sport and competition and why we do that. We want them to sort of explicitly understand how they can develop those wider life skills and how they can transfer them into different parts of their life as well. And then, as you can see, we're planning for that learning to happen. So what's that implementation? So again, we've got that correlation to that Ofsted inspection framework, but we want to think about now, so how do we implement this? We need clear outcomes that are defined for young people to understand. Also, if we think about it as a curriculum subject, in every curriculum subject, English, maths, physical education, we would never go into that lesson without having planned what learning is going to take place and what objectives we want to be as that outcome for that lesson. So it's the same for competition. However, we never want to focus on one outcome, and that shouldn't just be winning. So we want to make sure that there are learnings taking place in the competition and being really clear on what we're trying to develop. We want to plan for that learning to happen, but it should be based on the young people's motivation, their competence and their confidence. So if we take an example of a competition where if we take a year group of year sevens who have just transitioned from primary into secondary school, and we set up an orienteering competition, the purpose of the competition is to support those new year sevens become familiar with their new school environment. As they take part in the competition, they're going to have to complete a getting to know you bingo type sheet, and they've got to talk to each other, find out about each other, write it down on their sheet and just really get to know who their peers are. So this is going to help them make new friends, hopefully make them feel more settled, socialise with them with their other peers. And it's really then that the competition showcases that it's designed with clear intention, but there's wider outcomes at the heart of that competition. It's not just about the winning of the orienteering at the end of it. However, as we all know, there is always barriers, and we've got that big wall there to represent that around, the barriers to learning through competition. So some of those barriers, they might be different to you in your own setting, but it could be that, it's the motivation, the competence and the confidence of our young people. So it could be really difficult where there's young people competing against each other with lower competence levels against young people that have got really high competence levels in that particular sport or activity, and it just doesn't work, and it brings a barrier for both involved. But also there might be that there are some people that are highly competitive and showcase those extreme behaviours, but by focusing on the wider outcomes, hopefully that can be communicated well and diffuses that extreme behaviour to competition. So lots of things at play here, but hopefully by understanding the why part, having a clear intent, implementing it well and understanding our young people, that competition can be delivered in a really positive way, part of a really positive enrichment offer that all can access. Next slide, please. And then I just wanted to sort of list the themes of different approaches to competition that might give you some food for thought. So these have all been pulled from the School Games Interactive Approaches to Competition Toolkit, which you can find on the School Games website, and I will share the links with you. But this was created through research that was carried out by the Youth Sport Trust on exploring different approaches to competition, and the intent was to find out how a competition can be adapted to achieve those wider educational outcomes and aims. And from all of the research and the findings, the different approaches were put together under 8 themes, and the themes outline the intent of a competition to ensure it's meaningful, fit for purpose and relevant for children and young people. So as you can see there through all of the themes, some of them you may already use, and you may already have adapted some of your competitions to fit with these, but these are extremely, I think, important, more so now than ever before, with the effects of COVID, and really understanding our intent for competition. And this might link in really nicely to the work that Active Surrey are doing around their county school games offer, and what the intent of their county offer is going to be for school games too. So as you can see there, there's things around developing character and life skills, adapting scoring, adding fun elements to engage new audiences, to develop health outcomes, increase motivation, fostering social connections, The list goes on there, and a lot of this might be really relevant and important just now when we're dealing with the effects of COVID-19. Next slide, please. And again, this is just what that interactive toolkit looks like. There are lots of research on there. It takes you through each theme. It gives you the why, the how, the what, and there's some kind of interactive videos that bring that to life. So a fantastic resource that's absolutely free, and I think really important for you to have a look at that just now. That will really aid and support your planning for at this moment in time, perhaps, or for next academic year. Next slide, please. And just to give you a quick sort of example, but it would be lovely to play this with you face to face, but just have to do it virtually today. But just to give you an example of changing that approach to competition. So if we just take something simple as Jenga, where we organise young people into 2 groups. The teams take it in turns to take apart a brick from each team. They can only use one hand, one finger. They must not touch anything or rest anything on the table. And then the winning team is defined as the team that doesn't knock the tower down, and hopefully it rises really high and the game can go on for some time. So it's a really fun, simple game. Everybody's quite aware of the rules of Jenga. If we go on to the next slide, please, we can look at taking a simple game and changing the approach. So if we were to repeat this game, but introduce self-refereeing and spirit scoring instead, we would then share a spirit scoring team card with the 2 teams involved. And for that game, we would pick only a focus on honesty and teamwork. We would play best of 3 games using the rules from the spirit scoring score sheet, and both teams are going to self-referee the game. We're going to look at the criteria for honesty and teamwork, and we're going to consider how the other team are working towards that criteria. Once we've played all three games, we're then going to tell the other team one thing that they thought that they did really well based on that spirit scoring criteria. The teams then are going to individually score their opposition on their honesty and teamwork, and then there's going to be those scores will be shared. So on completion of the activity and after the spirit scoring has been completed, we would have that discussion on, why did we introduce this? How did it feel? How different was it to the traditional approach? And getting to talk about how that went. So a really simple condensed way to show you how taking a traditional game and how we change the approach slightly takes away a wider, it gives you a different educational outcome from that around thinking about teamwork, thinking about honesty, but also at that self-refereeing part where they can be that referee and have to really think about the rules from a different position. Okay, next slide, please. And then when we talk about that spirit score sheet, the School Games has an example of that we could use. It has those learning outcomes. It gives you that list of those School Games values. It gives you that criteria in there, and then that point scoring that you can attribute it. So again, it's really simple and easy to use. A really nice thing to do for children and young people to practice on, developing life skills, thinking about the different types of values and life skills and how they can work towards them as well through a sports setting or a different activity. These can also be found on the School Games website and part of the toolkit. Next slide, please. So now we've talked about the why of school sport. We've kind of explained some of the how and how that can be adapted and what that might look like through the different themes and approaches to competition. But I really want you to think about now, what is the how in your school? So we're going to think about, is your offer being informed by all young people? So are you asking them what they want? What do they need? How do they feel about enrichment, about sport? And getting everybody access it. So you might want to think about doing some youth voice work here We do have a free youth voice toolkit which you can download. It's a completely free resource, and it gives you lots of ideas of how you can approach this in your own setting, how you can create a focus group of youth voice, and this might give you some really good data and insight of building together your enrichment offer for next academic year, or perhaps just adapting it and changing it to fit the needs of your young people. Also, is your approach targeted? Is it based on just different sports, or are we thinking about different outcomes now, different intent of clubs and activities? Is it a completely blanket offer that goes out to everyone, or are we being really clear and specific on the groups and the young people based on their needs of who can access what and what's right for them to access? For example, are we bringing a group together to compete as a team together in that activity or sport or club, or to really draw out, you know, if they've had any friendship issues, if they need some re-socialisation, or if they feel that you feel that they have to work on that teamwork, that honesty together as a group. And then also it's thinking about, you know, what are the local competitions that are on offer? What are you feeding into? You know, do you have to develop confidence at the start of the year in order to compete in something later on in the academic year? Or perhaps maybe are you using it as a transition activity to really support your young people to build on having that sense of belonging, making friends if they've really struggled from being out and in school through the impact of COVID over the past year and a half. Or perhaps again, it could be to provide leadership opportunities to support wider events and festivals that are coming up, and to really draw out those leadership skills in your young people. Next slide, please. And again, it's really just to share with you the needs of young people are going to be so different over the past year through the impacts and implications of COVID-19, of lockdowns. YSD produced a paper last year, but I still think it's really relevant just now. There's going to be more information and data coming out about this, but I think it's a really good read, and there's just 3 things that I wanted to pull out. And this might be that your enrichment offer wants to support the needs of young people, and it might be that a lot of the needs there are things that are on the screen there around that increased mental health issues. Young people are stressed, they're lonely, really worrying about the future. Perhaps that they have not done a lot of physical activity just due to things being closed, things just reopening slowly, and also just things that are having a real negative impact on their mental health, and how your enrichment offer and how sport contributes can play a real part in supporting these young people. Next slide, please. And then again, just to reiterate, this is something that probably as practitioners, you'll all have witnessed and noticed in your own setting. But these were the issues that were identified by teachers at the start of this academic year as children returned post-lockdown. And if I'm being honest, from talking to head teachers and PE leads, you know, across London and the South East over the past year, things seem that they've stayed the same with young people. The biggest issue and worry has been that low physical fitness. It's been those educational gaps, and it's been those mental well-being issues, you know, anxiety, feeling stressed, feeling lonely, and finding it really tricky to adjust to routine again. And this could be where, you know, how does our enrichment offer, how does school sport and competition, how does it support these issues and the needs of young people? An example I'll give you quickly from Hertfordshire is they were really concerned about the educational gaps of some young people when they returned. They were working with an organisation called Teach Active, who have created an abundance of resources and CPD for active numeracy and active literacy. So they were using lots of these activities in the classroom, outdoors, throughout lessons to make numeracy and literacy really fun, you know, getting them active off their seats, using different equipment as well to help them with their learning. And they also created and set up extracurricular clubs linked to this to really support those young people. It was a targeted approach, but it was really met with lots of, it was well received by the students and the parents, and the young people just find it really fun now. They're doing all these fun physical activities, but they are focusing on learning on their numeracy and literacy at the same time. So it was a really good way to see an issue and combine physical activity with it, but put it into the enrichment offer as something additional to support those young people and their needs. Next slide, please. And then again, as I said before, so how can school sport be used to address some of these issues and the impacts of COVID-19? So let's just always come back to that why. So why are we doing school sport and competition? Are we offering these opportunities to all? Are we, changing our themes of competition or approaches to competition to achieve those wider outcomes? Are we doing it to develop those life skills, to support re-socialization, making friends, give a sense of belonging? Are we doing it to support those educational gaps, etc.? Then thinking about the how. Is it informed? Are we asking our young people? Are we talking to them? Have you done any focus groups with your school councils, your school sport organising committees? What are the issues? How do they feel? And how can enrichment in school sport really support them moving forwards? And then what will you do? What is it going to look like for you in your setting? Who do you need to ask for help? Who can support you? And who do you need to influence? So could this be something where using bubbles or house competitions, could it be incorporated through active learning? There's still lots of physical activity challenges that schools have really got on board with, or perhaps we're still thinking about virtual competitions that have worked really well for us in the past year. Can we take some of this positive learning that we've gained from this year, from trying different and new things, and incorporate it into a new enrichment offer for next academic year? So this is all about thinking about what are the outcomes that you want for your setting. And then if we move on to the next few slides, please, it's all about action planning and moving forwards. So if we jump ahead to the next slide, it's basically to go back and reflect on your enrichment offer and think about what do we need to do next? What am I going to do differently as a PE practitioner in my school? Who do I need support from locally, maybe perhaps nationally, but also who do I need to influence with my plans, my thinking, the data and the insight that I've got from the young people? Is it SLT? Is it parents? Is it governors? Is it other staff members? And then when am I going to do this? So like I said earlier, there's a million of different things and ideas and examples that there have been shared today and throughout this content that I've shared with you. But sometimes it's best just to think about one thing that you can do differently, or just start that process of reviewing and reassessing everything that you do and taking small steps to adapt and change the measures that you've got in place to really support your young people. And like I said earlier, it could be that you take some of the positive learnings from this year and build that into next year's offer. But really, small steps and thinking about one or two things that you could take from today that could make real positive change and empower your young people to do their personal best. And then just moving on to the second last slide, thank you. It's just about that support and what you can utilise. So like I mentioned earlier, the Approaches to Competition Interactive Toolkit has got an abundance of fantastic examples around those different themes and those approaches to competition to help you achieve those wider educational outcomes and really help you with that personal development piece and give some really good examples and evidence of showcasing that, perhaps if you have an Ofsted visit coming up, but also to share with SLT, parents and governors too. And then also thinking about that visual, you might want to take that and populate it in your own setting. Why school sport? What's your why? How are you going to do it? And what are the outcomes that you hope to achieve from it? And then just last slide, please. I just want to say a massive thank you. I've delivered today's session on behalf of my colleague who had some other deliveries on, but I think she has joined us today just to listen in. So if you do have any questions, please don't be shy. Please give us an email or a phone call if you want to find out some more information or you want to chat about anything else that you've heard today. We're more than happy to help and support you, and I will get back to any questions now on the chat function. So thanks for having me this afternoon. It's been lovely to be part of this today.
Perfect. Thank you ever so much, Ashley. There's some great takeaways in there for schools and lots of points that we've already been doing from the Active Schools team for our Surrey schools. So thank you very much. I'll remove your spotlight for you. So for those of you that were here for the spring takeaway, if we could just move on to the next slide, please, Wendy. I won't go over this too much because I've already spoken about it in the spring term network, but there was a lot of reference throughout there about the direction that School Games is heading in, and there'll be lots more information to cover in case you weren't here at the spring term, because I'm aware of the time, in the brochure that will be sent out tomorrow. But essentially, the School Games is heading in a new direction, one that we've already been heading in Surrey for a while, to provide positive experiences for young people to get physically active through daily activity and competition. So by providing the additional opportunities to support their wider development. If you could just tap one more, we'll get the Trek and Trail up. Perfect. So some of you may have been taking part in the Trek and Trail to Tokyo, which was our summer term offer this year. If you have been, please do submit your data to us by Friday. We'd love to see what you've been doing, how far you've got in your Trek to Tokyo from Surrey, and any additional personal challenges you or your children have been doing. I just want to draw special attention to the last section on the Trail to Tokyo, which is the festivals. So primary festival, and again, linking to some of what Ashley was saying. We trialled a primary festival in 2 local Woking schools a couple of weeks ago, and they wanted to do an inter-house competition, except the festival, we had based it, the leaders that I took into the school had based it on values. And so I went in and we said, we'll do inter-house competition for zone ball, which was the game activity at the end. But we didn't need to emphasize who won that activity. So we didn't need to say who came first, who came second, third and fourth, for the sake of inter-house, which obviously Kate was referencing earlier. But we still based it on values, and it made young people be acknowledged who might not necessarily have been acknowledged in other ways. So the values is really, really great aspect to incorporate into anything. And even if you still want to have a competition element, you still can. Just basing it around the values as well is a great addition as well. So reminder, submit your information to us if you have taken part in any of that. So quickly moving on, the district and county approach for the Surrey School Games is changing slightly. And this is to ensure that we have an offer for everyone and also a targeted offer for specific groups. So again, very quickly, the local district offer is focusing on an offer for everyone available through your district sport associations, which have worked with the Active Schools team, and they focus on Inspire, Aspire and Higher. These are the competition levels that we've been working with for a number of years, and it ensures that sort of everyone who kind of wants to have a go at a new activity can do. Those that are potentially B team teams can still have a suitable level of competition, and then also those that are the top level athletes, the sport for sport's sake, they are also having their own competition level as well. So it prides itself to allow opportunities for every type of young person out there. Moving on to the county offer. So this is what's changed slightly. So we're no longer going to be having the pathway opportunity between district and county level. The county opportunities are now going to be based on a much more targeted offer, which focuses on certain groups, which means there are more meaningful opportunities for those that are taking part. And again, this links into their wider development opportunities of personal, physical, social and emotional development. So I know I've rushed through that. I'm aware of the time and want you guys to get off early, but all of this detail is in the brochure and is on our website. And again, it will kind of be reiterated in your school sport association meetings in the new academic year. But just so that you're aware, that's what's coming next year. So let me flip back. I'm going to hand over to Wendy to wrap up for you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you to Ashley for that session on competition. That was really great. I think it sets the scene nicely for what you're going to see next year in terms of the school games programme. For those of you who have been in Surrey for a while, you'll know that we've got a very extensive school games programme, a kind of year-round calendar. It's been a very comprehensive programme. But it's not necessarily been targeting the right children and the children who need that kind of support and those opportunities. So we will be looking to make the changes in line with the national kind of guidance, and a lot of the things that Ashley went through, Charlie's working on at the moment in terms of what that programme is going to look like. And you'll hear much more about that at our autumn term network at the start of the next academic year. So I'm very conscious of time. I'm going to be really slick now and try and finish by 6 o'clock. We are done. I just want to take this opportunity just to kind of reiterate the services that Active Surrey provide. And also I want to say a kind of massive thank you to you as education practitioners, as PE leads, as teachers, as deputies, as head teachers, whoever you may be. It's not been an easy job that you've had for the past academic year and the previous one, to be perfectly honest. You're kind of, in my eyes, the unsung heroes throughout this kind of pandemic. So I just you know, on behalf of Active Surrey and all the young children and young people in Surrey, just want to say a big thank you for all of your efforts and everything that you've done to keep schools ticking over throughout this period. We wish you a really well-deserved and rested summer period. We are going to be around, obviously, right through until the end of term, and we're around during the summer holidays as well, if you want to speak to us about planning any services or support for next year. And we'll be around for a couple of minutes to take any Q&A or to facilitate any networking if anybody wants to do so. If you want to look out for our brochure, which will be launched, you know, in kind of follow-up emails when we share the slides from today. And as I kind of said, it's not a sales pitch. We're not a private organisation. We're not a profit-making organisation. We are a not-for-profit hosted organisation, part of Surrey County Council. But the earlier you book the services that you want to access through Active Surrey, the easier it makes our lives in terms of our planning for next year. So please do have a flick through this brochure when it lands in your inbox. Most of the time you'll get your communication directly from the member of Active Schools team who is your direct contact. You will start to get, and you have been getting, a lot more emails as well from our kind of generic inbox, which is the active.schools@surreycc.gov.uk. So if you get emails from that email address, please do pay attention to them, because it is basically coming from us, just not from our personalised email accounts. But that's it from us. It is 6 o'clock and we are going to finish on time. So thank you very much for joining the network, and make a note of the network dates for next year. And fingers crossed we might actually see some of you in person. Thank you very much.